This was a working man's town, and I think it's important to reflect that history today.
The thing that really intrigues me the most out of all the years that I've worked on these old buildings in town is how lightly built, how lightly structured they were. And yet some of them are 125 years old. And they have seen snowfalls during that decade plus that we can only dream about, and yet they're still standing. It's just pretty amazing how those old timers put things together. It was mostly just hand tools. They didn't have cranes, they didn't have power tools. They cut two angles, 90-degree angle and a 45-degree angle. That's why most everything is a 12-12 pitch. Two angles, that's it. They built these buildings with just the tools that they could carry around. They didn't even use tool belts. So it was pretty basic construction. But, you know, their product too, the designs that we inherited from them, the pioneers, were very organic. They were building buildings in the style and the techniques that they knew and they brought to this country from the old country, wherever that is, Croatia, Yugoslavia, Italy, whatever. But Crested Butte has a little flavor from all those basic communities, those basic towns in Europe. And the pioneers brought those techniques with them. But they didn't, a lot of times, didn't use plans. They didn't have design guidelines. They did everything just by memory and by common sense. They needed a 3, 4, 5-room house. They just built a 3, 4, 5-room house. It needs to be about this big, and let's go get the lumber. A lot of times they milled the lumber themselves or just got it from the local mill and just put it together. And they look like what they look like. You know, that was their style. So we have guidelines on historic buildings, how to work on historic buildings. A lot of those guidelines, rules, and regulations are come from the state of Colorado, Historic Society. So there's been a lot of homework done through the years. The state and throughout the country, Crested Butte is really kind of a shining star. It's kind of an example of how it can be done, but it sure takes a lot of energy, a lot of committed people to get to the point where we're at today.
And I got to credit Molly Miniman too for helping to maintain this character in this town. That's what everybody loves. When they come to this 4-way stop, they look at this and say, man, I would love to live here. I wish I could make a living here. I mean, this is where I want to be. And there's good reason for it, because it's been maintained. You know, it's kept the character that drew you here in 1978, drew me here in 1978. It's one of those things that has been maintained just basically because of some tough design guidelines. That used to be clad in all that yellow clapboard, and underneath that you have stone, and then you have log, chink, and plank. And you go, wow, that's interesting. And then you go over to maroon, and first in maroon, and I found Johnny Biggers did the remodel over there. When we took that board and batten off that house, we found log right in the middle of town. And a lot of these homes came from Gothic, made their way down here, and they were log homes up in Gothic and Irwin. They'd roll them down here and place them in various spots throughout town. The town was pretty small, so they were closer to downtown.
This is where the gym is. This is where that feeling is. This is where that sense of community and character is. It is wonderful to be here, and we don't always understand it. Is it the built environment established by the buildings that were constructed in the 1880s and 90s and really up until the 1940s? Is it because we have lineage and a connection, roots to a coal mining community that had a lot of heart? They worked really hard. They worked harder than we even know how to work, but they also played hard. They got together for venues and have polkas. They had potlucks. Certain ethnic groups were supportive of each other. We are the beneficiaries of these people that laid down so much before us, and we don't always realize that.